Rightio, so welcome to the garage, or what goes for it at my place. And yeah, I thought I'd have a yarn today as to, well, the talk of the town at the moment, obviously, Kawasaki's KLR650, the rebirth of the model as a 2022. A lot of people are really down on the bike, which I'm not exactly sure why. For some reason, a lot of people seem to think that Kawasaki should have made a high power, high performance Tenere or Tiger competitor, something to take on KTM's 890 perhaps, instead of what we got, which is a rejigged, redesigned KLR 650 like we all know and love. So yeah, sure, it's far from a cutting edge motorcycle. It's definitely not a KTM 890 or Triumph Tiger. And on the face of it, it's even more basic than the Tenere 700, but that's why it makes sense. It's a budget bike, and that's what the KLR 650 always has been. That's where the market is. That's what Kawasaki is trying to sell. They're not trying to sell a high power bike. They want to have a mass market bike with mass appeal in that lower end of the market. In fact, if you're going to compare the KLR to bikes that are currently in the marketplace, particularly here in New Zealand, you're more looking at the likes of the Benelli TRK 502 or, say, the Royal Enfield Himalayan as competitors for the KLR, because single, basic, low end of the market. So for 2022, the KLR 650 is returned to the global market with a host of changes that bring it in line with things like emissions, bring it updated to technology, because the bike for many, many years had nothing in the way of technology. It was just a solid, reliable, back to basics motorcycle, and it just stayed that way because there was a market for it, and Kawasaki knows this. So the frame remains the same, but Kawasaki's replaced the problematic subframe, where the subframe bolts tended to be a weak point, particularly for travellers. So the subframe is now grafted to the main frame, so this should improve reliability there. The engine obviously has received a slew of updates as well, including EFI, which should make the dinosaur of an engine last a hell of a lot longer, especially considering its main threat these days isn't the doohickey, which apparently has been addressed, but is actually emissions regulations. And the fact that Kawasaki got this bike to pass Euro 5 emissions is a miracle, because nobody actually thought that Kawasaki was going to even attempt to keep the single cylinder KLR alive. So while other countries are going to get the option of a KLR without ABS, in New Zealand it will come with ABS only, and from what I understand currently, Kawasaki New Zealand's yet to confirm this directly with me, but this is not the type of ABS that you can switch off. It is the same type as we saw debuted last year on the KLX230. So that means while you can't switch it off, it has been specifically developed with off-road riding in mind, so it will allow some lock-up to some extent. Another big leap in technology for the KLR is obviously the move to a digital dash, away from that very cool but very old school analog system. And we're talking analog, it was all done with bevels and cables. That's how your speedo came through it. So it's a big leap in technology. While it doesn't have a rev counter, which is slightly odd, it does have a fuel gauge for that massive 23-litre fuel tank. So that's something to be happy about, because yeah, I remember when I rode the previous generation KLR, getting down to reserve and going, all right, that was unexpected, because you've just got so much fuel you forget to fill up. Styling's been another major update for the KLR, with more angular body panels, a new LED headlight, which much like the second generation bike, which mimicked the Ninjas of the time, this time it mimics the headlight we've seen on the Z bikes from Kawasaki. There's also a higher spec machine called the KLR 650 Adventure, which New Zealand will also get. Pricing for both models, by the way, yet to be announced, but that will come with panniers, crash bars and auxiliary lights as standard. So the third gen KLR offers more than ever before, so why all the hate? Like I said earlier, I think it's because people are expecting yet another high performance off-roader, but Kawasaki have played it smart because that market's already full. Adding another bike into that, you're not going to make a lot of sales, whereas you go for the lower end of the market, yes, the profits aren't as good, but most of the development of this bike in terms of chassis and sort of engine, all that hard stuff was done decades ago. So they've updated it and brought a tried and tested design into the 2020s. Adding another bike to that crowded class would have just been a dumb move. The category is already teeming with bikes with good suspension, twin-cylinder engines, switchable ABS, traction control, and all that. Riders who want those bikes already have plenty of options. So this bike is targeted at the lower end of the market for riders that are new to adventure riding or just want a solid adventure tourer, a bike that they can travel around the world on no hassles, and that's what Kawasaki's brought to the table. And for the fact of the matter is, the Kawasaki's never been, the KLR I'm talking about here, it's never been that type of bike anyway. It's always been a solid, reliable, just does the job bike. It's tough as nails, it's unintimidating, and that's where Kawasaki are hoping to make their bread and butter with this bike. So, in my opinion anyway, I'm just a dude on the internet. That's why the KLR650 for 2022 does make sense to me. I know a lot of people disagree. Feel free to chime in the comments and tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me Kawasaki should have made something more like the upcoming Aprilia Touareg, for instance. But honestly, in my mind, Kawasaki's done a smart thing here. Yes, it's disappointing they didn't put a parallel twin in there, but they have brought their own take on the market. They've got something very different, and it will be priced as a gateway drug for many riders who want to get into adventure riding. So kudos to Kawasaki for keeping it real. I'm really looking forward to seeing the 2022 KLR650 in person. I'm really looking forward to seeing the price for New Zealand, but judging by overseas markets, it's going to be quite an appealing bike. The one thing that I'm slightly apprehensive about with this KLR650 is that ABS system. So if I get a chance to ride it, I'll be taking it on my favourite gravel ride loop, and we'll put that ABS system to the test. But until then, the bike's not due for another few months here in New Zealand, so we'll keep an eye on updates, and yes, stay tuned to here on youtube.com/onthrottle, or check out my website where I'm posting up news, reviews, and a whole lot of other motorcycle related content. That's onthrottle.co.nz. And yeah, keep the rubber side down and keep on that throttle.